Have you noticed how often words promise one thing while outcomes quietly promise another? How a woman's warmth vanishes after you make yourself too available? How a manager praises your team spirit while routing promotions to the bolder man? How friends swear loyalty until a better invitation appears? You keep giving people the benefit of the doubt, and you keep paying the bill. You argue with evidence because intentions sound kinder than incentives. Niccolo Machiavelli would put a hand on your shoulder and turn your head toward the ledger. Men are not what they announce under soft light. Men and women alike are what they repeat when stakes are real. If you want respect, love that survives weather, and alliances that hold under pressure, stop reading speeches and start reading systems. The cost of naivete is life on layaway. You pay and someone else collects. Read incentives, govern by them, and your world will resort around truth. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand, because everyone sees, while few contest. In a naive age, you reverse the caution. You judge by the mouth because it is pleasant, and you refuse to test because testing risks conflict. You take apologies as restitution and promises as collateral, and you are shocked when the same pattern returns under a new caption. The prince is an instruction to stop being shocked. Incentives are the grammar of behavior. Align with them and people become predictable. Ignore them and every week feels like betrayal. Begin in the house of desire. A partner says she loves honesty, but reacts to truth with punishment. The incentive is to hide. If you hide, the relationship decays in secrecy. If you tell the truth and accept the cost, the relationship clarifies fast. She learns that tantrums do not buy edits. You learn that intimacy cannot be rented by lying. Incentives teach both parties faster than speeches. In dating, intermittent attention keeps you orbiting because scarcity pays in dopamine. When you answer scarcity with pursuit, you inflate the price of your presence to zero. When you answer scarcity with withdrawal, you reprice yourself. Incentives move, then words move to match. At work, a manager says collaboration is king, then advances those who bring finished decisions. The incentive is to deliver, not to moderate. The naive man keeps hosting circles of agreement and wonders why his career stalls. The Machiavellian man learns the room, drafts alone, tests quickly, carries risk, and shares credit. He aligns with what is paid, not what is preached. He will not be the most liked in chatter, but he will be called when the roof leaks. Your character is not threatened by reading incentives. It is refined. You stop resenting gravity for being heavy. You design around it. That design is not cynicism. It is mercy for reality. Mercy for reality produces results that words alone cannot buy. Those results, over time, reteach the room what it is truly rewarding. If you want a different culture, change what gets paid. If you cannot change it, change rooms. Most men confuse kindness with blindness. They believe that to be good, they must treat intentions as sovereign and outcomes as accidents. Machiavelli turns that piety on its head. People intend what their incentives allow them to intend again. A friend who forgets to pay will remember when access is contingent on settlement. A colleague who didn't mean to take credit will mean to cite you when future projects require your consent. This is not cruelty. It is governance by consequence, the only language the marketplace understands. In relationships, incentives are set by what your silence subsidizes. If you keep showing up after disrespect, you set a price that even the unkind can afford. If you leave once and cleanly when contempt appears, you set a price that only the serious will pay. Injuries should be done at once, he advised, meaning decisive corrections cheaply resolve what repeated scolding makes expensive. You are not teaching with anger. You are teaching with absence. Words describe law. Enforcement writes it. People who live by asking, "Why would she do that?" stay bewildered. People who live by asking, "What is she rewarded for when she does that?" gain leverage. A partner who gets intimacy only after starting fights is rewarded for conflict. Break the pattern by giving intimacy after cooperation and detaching after drama. Do it without sermon. Incentives are quiet. They do not litigate motives. They rewire habits. If the bond cannot survive outside the old incentive loop, better to learn it early than to mortgage a decade to hope. Understanding incentives also protects you from flattery. When a brand, a cause, or a person pours praise on you for being safe, ask what your safety buys them. Often, it buys control. When someone loves your edge, ask what your edge earns them. Often, it earns spectacle. Align with incentives that reward your integrity and competence, not your availability or volatility. If applause rises when you betray your own rules, the crowd is not your audience. It is your auctioneer. Kindness survives this realism without becoming soft. Because you are not surprised by human nature, you can forgive without forgetting the math. You can offer second chances with real costs. You can stay generous because you are no longer being bled by delusion. Reading incentives makes your love less gullible and more durable. Reputation is a currency, and incentives define its exchange rate. Machiavelli stressed that a ruler must avoid being despised and hated. He did not mean to chase popularity. He meant to price disrespect. A man who prices disrespect at zero collects it in abundance. A man who makes disrespect expensive rarely has to invoice. You do not threaten, you demonstrate. When someone gossips in your presence, you end the talk and end access. When someone breaks a promise, you adjust the scale of future trust. When someone plays scarcity games, you decline to chase and decline to perform pain. The incentive becomes clear. If they want proximity, they must behave like someone who wants it. Naivete believes that good explanations repair bad economics. They do not. A partner explains that she was overwhelmed while withdrawing consistency. A boss explains that budget is tight while funding pet projects. Friends explain that life is busy while always finding time for whatever pays them back. Keep your warmth and change your calculus. You do not need apologies. You need a new pattern. The moment you silently re-index your time by returns instead of words, your calendar becomes honest. Men who cannot stand this honesty will call you transactional. They preferred you on charity. Decline the shame. This realism must begin at home. Incentivize your best self. If you reward your own panic with dopamine, panic will govern you. If you reward your own discipline with privacy and pride, discipline will visit more often. If you keep rescuing yourself from the costs of procrastination, procrastination will reign. The prince who cannot govern himself is governed by whichever courtier rings loudest. Align your inner court exactly as you plan to align your outer life. Women who respect men watch incentives faster than men do. She may say she values your sensitivity, and she may. Watch what she stays for. If she stays for steady progress, sane edges, and promises kept under weather, you are aligned. If she stays only for intensity, crisis, and grand apology, you are being paid to perform. Decline the role. The audience will move to a different theater. Let it. A reputation built on reading incentives becomes clean water for everyone who drinks from it. People know what to expect, what it costs, and how you behave when you lose. That predictability is why adults prefer strategy to speech. Machiavelli disliked naive mercy because it births future violence. When you refuse to see incentives, you let patterns ripen into emergencies. You allow small betrayals to stack until you explode, and then you become the villain in a story you financed. Mercy without consequence teaches wolves to smile. Severity without proportion makes good people cautious of you. The art is measured enforcement. You make disloyalty expensive and redemption possible. You keep doors open for those who change, and you keep your back turned to those who only speak change. In modern dating, the most common naivete is confusing stated values with lived costs. A partner says she wants a man who leads, then punishes every decision she did not pre-approve. The incentive is for you to become a puppet. Decline the theater, lead and accept disagreement. If disagreement becomes prosecution, exit without performance. The next man who steps in will inherit the same incentive structure. You are not special enough to beat math, and you are too valuable to live beneath it. In teams, naivete looks like rewarding fire drills with praise while ignoring those who prevent fires. You become a crisis culture. Machiavelli would invert the reward. Quiet prevention gets the bonus. Showy rescue gets gratitude and rest. The incentive shifts the organism from adrenaline to competence. Good people stop leaving. Bad habits stop being profitable. With friends, stop paying for proximity with self-betrayal. Men who only arrive when you are free on their terms are telling you the price of their loyalty. Either pay it and stop complaining or change vendors. You are allowed to align your generosity with men who return it without management. You are allowed to be expensive to the unserious and free to the worthy. Reading incentives will be called cold by those who prefer confusion. It is warmer than their weather in the long run. When everyone knows what action buys what consequence, anxiety drops. People stop bargaining with subtext. They step up or drift. Your life acquires rhythm. Machiavelli's grim clarity yields peace that pep talks cannot buy. Fewer betrayals because they no longer pay. Appearance signals your incentive map. Men judge by the eye because signals compress history. If your space is disordered, your timekeeping erratic, and your stories long, you advertise low cost for disrespect. If your home is readable, your schedule is one face in every room, and your words are short, you advertise high cost for crossing lines. Machiavelli would never let you campaign for respect while dressing your life in incentives for contempt. Naivete thinks charm can rebate bad signals. It can for a moment. Then gravity returns. A partner will trust your edges, not because you argue for them, but because they experience the cost of violating them. A client will pay on time not because you reminded them often, but because delivery halts when payment halts. A friend will stop flaking not because you dramatize your hurt, but because the door is no longer open after the third miss. To the unserious, you will seem unforgiving. To the serious, you will feel safe. Reading incentives also protects you from the herd. Popular scripts invite you to signal virtues that pay in likes, but not in life. You learn to detect when the crowd is subsidizing behavior that empties men. Confessional excess, performative allyship, fashionable despair. Align yourself instead with practices that pay in outcomes. Finished work, kept oaths, defended boundaries, generosity after order. The incentives of the platform are not the incentives of a household. Choose the household. A final alignment belongs to selection. Choose partners, friends, and employers whose incentives reward what you can stand behind. If the organization pays drama with attention, your steadiness will starve. If the woman pays crisis with closeness, your calm will feel like deprivation. If the friend pays gossip with intimacy, your honor will make you lonely there. It is easier to pick a system that pays virtue than to moralize a system that pays vice. Machiavelli does not hate intention. He simply refuses to anchor a life to it. When signals and incentives harmonize, You stop arguing with people about who they are. You watch what their world pays them to be, and you decide whether to fund it. Your own signals begin to draw the kind you want to keep. That is not magic. It is pricing. Machiavelli's law is not despairing. It is liberating because it moves judgment from sentiment to structure. Align with incentives, and you recover 3 assets naivete burns. You recover time because you stop funding lost causes. You recover dignity because you stop begging for behavior that economics forbids. You recover warmth because you reserve it for bonds where kindness and cost reinforce each other. This clarity will cost you a few rooms. People who prospered under your confusion will call you calculating. Wear the charge. Calculation is how adults protect love from chaos. You will lose a handful of high-drama bonds and gain a handful of quiet loyalties. You will be invited to fewer debates and to more decisions. You will hear less about intentions and see more about delivery. You will discover that women who value men relax when incentives match words. You will also discover that some will leave because the old loop paid them more. Bless their exit. You are not responsible for making uneconomic relationships feel spiritual. Keep your mercy and pair it with math. Offer chances that can be measured. Forgive without restoring access where incentives are unchanged. Praise the smallest movement in the right direction and refuse the grand apology that leaves prices intact. This is how cities are made out of tribes and households out of attractions. The Prince is not a manual for cruelty. It is a manual for consequence. Consequence is the only language liars cannot fake. You made it to the end. If this struck nearer to your truth than to your comfort, act. Choose one place this week to stop arguing with intentions and start aligning with incentives. Say less, price better, and let the pattern teach. Drop your sentence below and like this video. Share this to a brother who keeps paying with hope and getting billed by reality. And subscribe if you want strategy that turns softness into strength.